Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United transfer news, as Manchester United could make a late transfer hijack on a midfielder that's not Ugarte. We'll talk about who that will be, or could be three in a moment. Also, Jadon Sancho's exit from Manchester United to Juventus moves closer. Di Marzio speaking about it last night, but also a massive development with Chiesa, which could open the door to Sancho going to Juventus. We'll talk about that as well. Also, we've got the latest on what's happening with Obi Martin, an update there from Fabrizio Romano. Also, Branthwaite, Liverpool, 70 million deal. What would you think about that happening? And what do you think is going to happen with 7 days to go in the transfer window? And we've been linked to another centre-back, which makes no sense to me as well. We'll certainly talk about that as well. And yeah, a lot of people have looked at the thumbnail. They know it's Rabiot and Andre that we'll talk about, of course. And effectively, unlike others, media, whatever you want to call them, we're pretty much going to try and keep it an Ugarte-free zone, which I think deserves a like in itself, because it's Friday night party at 8 o'clock on the United Stand. We love the Friday night show. The last two nights, Wednesday and Thursday night shows, have been amazing, actually. So God knows what Friday night's going to be. But I feel that this community's been going long enough that we don't need to fill it talking about Ugarte. So although the word's been said twice, I don't actually have anything to say about it, because we've said it all before and we're just waiting for when it's going to happen. And I'm not going to come up with another word for concrete, close, imminent, or, you know, anything else like that. But what we will talk about, first of all, is Andre, because Krunel says, is Andre that good? Now, this is a player that we have been linked to. So we're going to talk Andre, Rabiot and Amrabat. We'll get into why, but ultimately what we're talking about here is the second midfield option. There has always been a primary midfield option, whether that be Ugarte, Sander Berge, Zubimendi, whatever. There's always been that primary midfielder that Man United have been looking for, but there has always been the talk of a second midfielder. Amrabat waiting on his exercise bike, Rabiot waiting on his yacht, Andre waiting in Brazil. So this is what we're talking about here. Late deals with 7 days to go. So this story revolves around Andre of Fluminense. Brazilian midfielder, I think he's about 23. Lots of people have spoken about him. We've been heavily linked to him. We're back linked into him again this morning. And look, effectively, I don't know. I don't watch him. I don't know enough about him. But he is a player that was heavily linked with Fulham. Obviously, Fulham have looked elsewhere. I mean, look, Fulham have gone for Sander Berge and Smith Rowe over going for Andre. So does that say something about his qualities? I don't know. Wolves are in for him now, and Manchester United are apparently ready to move as well, around 25 million euros. So, look, right here, right now, we don't have any midfielders, but the plan clearly is to probably try and bring 2 in before the end of the window. We're very much looking like 1 because we've got none, but Andre is a player that is back under consideration for Manchester United. Now, my theory on Andre, I think it's a bit different with Rabiot, because we've got an update on Rabiot and we've got an update on Amrabat. And the Rabiot situation is a little bit more interesting because there is interest from 3 or 4 Premier League clubs. One of them is meant to be Liverpool and still Manchester United, who've tried to get him for the last 2 summers. So there is those in the know who suggest I wouldn't move away from Rabiot signing for Man United on the final day of the transfer window. I wouldn't rule it out. But those people are probably doing that because it's interesting, but also because they know it might happen. But if it doesn't happen, well, you know, it was a long shot. So we'll talk about Rabiot in a moment. Certainly want to talk about the Sancho situation, because what's happening with Chiesa really does open the door there. Art says Rabiot's mum's an issue, but let's just box off this Andre. Rather Andre the Giant, says Matt Thomas. I'd rather Peter Andre, because he's got mysterious ways in that midfield that could trick people. Crap joke for Friday morning. That's your fault, Matt, pulling me into rubbish Andre jokes. But my theory is that Wolves are making a play for Andre from Fluminense, and that Man United's name is being thrown in because, yet again, we get used to facilitate other people's deals, to enhance offers, etc. That's my theory on it. However, this is what Ben Jacobs had to say about the matter with regard to Andre and Manchester United. He says that Wolves have a concrete interest in Andre, however, long way from an agreement yet, and price might prove prohibitive, but a move is being explored. Also understand that Manchester United has been spoken of as a possibility. As previously reported, he's only as an alternative to Ugarte, and the feeling remains that a deal is there close with regards to Ugarte. So that's from Ben Jacobs. That sort of fits in with where we're sort of looking at there. Paul Potter says Rabiot's mum's a mysterious girl. I like the connection with Andre. Yeah, it's all moving over here. But I think with Andre and Man United, I'd file it in the highly unlikely category. I mean, if Ben Jacobs saying it's an alternative to Ugarte, and everybody's saying we're about to get Ugarte, then there is no alternative to Ugarte. So I don't think anything's going to happen with Andre. But look, it's the final week of the transfer window. I don't think anything's really going to happen with the left back. But I also would say that we've never had a final week of the transfer window with Ineos before. And I do sense that they will want to do something more than drag out Ugarte for 2 months and sign him in the final week of the window. That just feels to me very Glazer. We literally did this with Anthony, didn't we? We could have got him in June. We took it right to the end of the window, and we ended up paying what Ajax wanted. So I don't think the Glazers, I don't think Sir Jim will just want our final action of this transfer window to be, confirming a deal for Ugarte where PSG get what they wanted 2 months ago. I think he will want to do something else, but what that is, I don't know. River Man O says, I'm surprised United didn't make a public move for Andre earlier in the summer to help with PSG Ugarte fee. Anyone want to guess which two I want, says Keel? Well, we're going to talk about one of them in a minute. And Charlie Rogers says, I know it won't happen, but I was impressed by Fulham's Robinson at left back against us. Mate, I can't believe, like Charlie, I do like Anthony Robinson at Fulham. I liked him last week when he played against us. I've liked him for a very long time. But there's people running this as content fillers, and shame on them, because the source is shit. It's really shit. And I won't do that. And unless, well, sometimes we'll laugh at something, but that is like, I'm not putting that in a title or writing it's a rubbish source. It's rubbish. I like the player, but it's a rubbish source. Anyway, let's move on. I want to talk very, very quickly about this midfield situation with Rabiot. So we spoke about Andre. Let's talk about this midfield situation, because I believe, like many of you, that Ugarte will come to Manchester United. So will there be a second midfield option? And if that second midfield option is on the table, who would it be? Because I still think that there is a sense of regret, I suppose, that we've not been able to be as... I just feel that the best way of putting it is I think there might be a missed opportunity in the midfield. Like, games are won and lost in the midfield, and we've got a really big opportunity to revolutionise our midfield like we have our centre-backs. Long term, I think our centre-back situation is really good. Martinez will be here for years. De Ligt will be here for years. Yoro will be here for years. Maguire and Lindelof and Evans will be gone in a year or two. We'll probably bring another centre-back in. Centre-back-wise, we've got a good future. And midfield, we had a really good opportunity to do that as well. If we could have got rid of McTominay and Eriksen, and I know Casemiro is difficult to get rid of, but I think he'll be gone in a year as well, and you replace them with Ugarte and, a second midfielder, then you really are starting to make a change. And I just don't know whether we can do that second midfielder because we haven't been able to get rid of players. And it's the same old problem again, isn't it? If you can't get rid of people, how can you really bring people in? And I'm convinced Ugarte will happen, but I'm also convinced that we wanted to bring two midfielders in. And as I look at it in the final week, whether you think these players are good enough or not, there is a real opportunity, a cheap opportunity, in essence, to bring in Amrabat or Rabiot. And I think that people will say, what, you're laughing about cheap? Well, no, Amrabat will be cheap. But Rabiot is cheap comparative to the fact that he's a free transfer and you're just paying wages. Now, with Rabiot, I maintain that he is a good player. He wouldn't be my, let's go and buy him to revolutionise our midfield, but I wouldn't be saying no to him coming in as our second midfielder to give us strength and options in the midfield. We've tried to get him the last 2 summers. Will it be third time lucky? It could be. The bottom line is with Rabiot is that you can't really find a story that's going to tell me that United couldn't do something with that towards the end, in addition to Ugarte, because he's just sat on a yacht. He's just sat doing his own pre-season. He's just waiting for his options. And Liverpool are interested in him now as well. And I think if he goes to Liverpool, he'll be a bloody good player. So if he can go to Liverpool and be a good player, why can't he come to United and be a good player? And people talk about his wages. There ain't no way Liverpool are going to give him stupid wages, because that's not what Liverpool do. So if I was Man United, I would be looking at that Rabiot situation with very attentive eyes and going, what is he thinking about signing with Liverpool? Because if he's going to sign a contract with Liverpool on, 190k a week, I'd do it. As long as it's below 200k, I'd do it. I mean, obviously, if he's going to go to Liverpool or Spurs or whatever and earn 250 grand a week, you say no. But if his wage, if he signed for Liverpool on 190k a week, I'd be quite disappointed, actually, because I think, well, we do need midfielders, and that wage is absolutely fine for a free agent. I mean, we gave Eriksen 150k, and it's Eriksen. So, look, I think that I'm not saying we're going to sign Rabiot, but if we're going to sign a second midfielder, I'd be quite interested in it. And Amrabat is just there, isn't he? Amrabat is just there. And Nigel says bring in Amrabat, but he is there. And I think that I just don't know whether we'll bring a second midfielder in, because we've spent so much time on Ugarte. But I think it would be nice to bring another midfielder in, because I would love to look at that midfield roster and go, well, certainly looks like Casemiro's staying, Ugarte, Mainu, an Amrabat or a Rabiot, Mount, Bruno, Collier, and you move Eriksen and McTominay out. I'd really like that. So you'd have Casemiro, Mainu, Rabiot, Amrabat, Mount, Bruno, Collier. I'd be very happy with that. But the reality is we're probably still going to have McTominay and Eriksen. I'd rather have... I've done that one, sorry. We had a good, nice super chat here from Demar, who says, good morning, Mark. Thank you for this platform. Don't know what I'd do without it. Ordered the book, waiting for it to be delivered. Get in. Thank you very much for your support, mate. And hopefully you'll enjoy it. Mark, I'm not saying you're old at all, but you remind me of my grandfather that passed away last year and helps me feel at home. Much love, brother, says Logan. I'll say it as a compliment. Rabiot versus Andre poll. We get a mid-gone did week. What? If we get a midfielder gone did week, says Ravu. If we get a midfielder done next week, I think is what he's saying. Let me start a poll on that one then. Either or. I mean, actually, I'm gonna modify it because we're not getting Andre. So I'm gonna say Amrabat or Rabiot, because that's far better. This is the left back we should sign. Katara, says Ben Jones PT. I think you've mentioned him loads of times. And I get why people want Sancho gone, but should we not be replacing him first? He starts over Anthony for me. This was why we were in for Elise, says Jamie B. And United should stay the hell away from Rabiot, says Matt. The last thing we need is another egotistical player on huge wages we're stuck with. Maybe that's a good point. And Reva Manu says, I'm surprised that United didn't make a public move for Andre earlier in the summer to help with PSG Ugarte fee. Well, I've spoken about that one. Sign Ugarte and both Rabiot free and Amrabat. Yeah, we can't buy three, Ben. We can't buy three. You've been very, very, very greedy there. Very, 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 very greedy there. But just talking about Jadon Sancho. Interesting story coming out about Jadon Sancho. Now, a lot of people are talking about Sancho to Juventus this morning. Obviously, we hit this at 8 o'clock last night because we know what we're talking about. And obviously, a lot of people this morning are talking about Sancho, Anthony Robinson and Ugarte because they're bloody lazy and they can't be bothered to go and find proper stories when they actually happen. Jadon Sancho to Juventus is very much on. We spoke about this last night. Damarcio did an article about it late last night as well. So I don't need bloody TalkSport to say we understand that the interest from Juventus is genuine. Yeah, I know it's bloody genuine because I actually read Italian reports and find out what's going on from the source, pal, not from your lot regurgitating shit and passing it off as your own. I mean, they literally are the person that sees a dog shitting in the garden, pushes the dog out of the way and then leans over it and goes, that's my shit, I did it. But the point is, Sancho, Juventus is genuine. And as we said last night, Juventus were looking at Sancho at the start of the summer, but they don't have the money. And as Damarcio said, they are very much, I mean, this is from Damarcio last night, who's very good on Italian stuff. He said, Juventus are very much in the race for Jadon Sancho, and they will even look at 40 million euros loan obligation to buy whatever. But the big barrier is the wages. So Juventus' situation at the moment is not that they want Sancho. It's not that they're not willing to pay for Sancho. It's the wages, which takes it away from United and takes it away from Juventus, because you're now putting it on to Sancho. So Sancho will probably say, well, if you're willing to pay for me for United, then United can pay me the wages that I should be earning. So I think problematic is the question here. And I just wonder at what point Jadon Sancho stops worrying about his wage and starts worrying about playing football. Because if he messes up a deal to Juventus or PSG or anybody else because of his wage, he then has 9 months of sitting on his arse trying to win a place back at a club he probably doesn't really want to be at. So let's hope there is some common ground that can be found between Manchester United, Juventus and Jadon Sancho so that we can get this deal done and everybody wins. Because Sancho wants to play football, Man United want to move him on, and Juventus do want him. Now, the interesting thing this morning is, if you're monitoring Italian reports of credibility, is that Inter Milan are now leading the race for Chiesa. Now, I read this from Italy, and the reason I picked up on it is because Man United was referenced as Man United are set to lose out on Chiesa because Inter are willing to pay him his wages, which Man United won't be able to afford. And I thought to myself, bollocks, I don't think Man United are even in for Chiesa. But the interesting thing is, Inter are. So if Inter get Chiesa out of Juventus, then Juventus suddenly have got that gap in their team to fill. So I think that hopefully, we're going to get a lot happening in the next few days anyway. That mad scramble. I mean, I don't think that this summer transfer window away from Manchester United, and I'd be interested to know what you think, I don't think this summer transfer window's really got... I mean, Liverpool haven't bought anybody. And I just don't believe Liverpool won't buy somebody. So, which we'll come back to in a moment. But I think that this last week of the transfer window could get really busy, really silly, really quickly. And this is why I want Man United to just get Ugarte done so we can observe it and go, yeah, no. Because there might be something really interesting that we can grab hold of here and do. And certainly that might not just be in relation to incomings. It's more likely to be on outgoings. So if it's true that Inter are close to taking Chiesa, and I think Chiesa will stay in Italy, so, and I can see Chiesa playing for Inter, actually. I really can. I can see him wearing an Inter Milan top so much that I'm thinking, has he already played for Inter Milan? Because I can just see him in an Inter Milan top. I know he hasn't played for him, but I can just see Chiesa playing an Inter Milan top. So if that happens, it opens the door for Jadon Sancho, certainly. And hopefully that's what will happen. Joe says that Sancho's got options, but his greed is in the way. Well, whether greed is the right word, you can certainly substitute greed for wages. And I would agree with you, Joe. I think Sancho does have options, but his wages get in the way. Hi, Mark. What's happening with the Ugarte deal, says Patrick. I don't know whether you're being a troll. There, but we're trying to keep it a bit of an Ugarte-free zone, and I think we're all loving it, because one thing I've noticed over the years, and I look back to the Pogba deal. Bonus point for person who can tell us what summer year it was we signed Pogba. I'm going to take a guess at 2000 and... Was it 16? Was it 2016 we signed Pogba? Just a quick quiz question. I nearly said 17, but it's definitely not. It's 16 or 15. I think it's 16. Because it was the summer that we sacked Van Gaal. Was it 2016? Yeah, I get the point. Yeah, I mean, I remember, God, 2016, that's 8 years ago. I remember doing the United Stand, talking about the Pogba deal, and every fucking video, it felt like it was Pogba this, Pogba close, Pogba transfer shock, Pogba trouble, Pogba delay, Pogba deal off. You know, it was just Pogba. And I really am... I'm not excited about Ugarte. I'm really excited about Ugarte, but I am at the end of my tether with talking about how close it is. you know, I can't be bothered about it now. I'm just waiting for it to happen because I'm convinced it will happen. Like everybody I speak to says it's going to happen. Everything I read says it's going to happen. I just don't know when it's going to happen. And it might not happen until next Friday as well. And that's a long 7 days of just, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And I just feel that with Ugarte, we're at that point now where the only news is it's done or it's off. And I certainly don't think it's going to be off. So, sign Ugarte and both Rabiot free. Have done that one from Ben Jones. Baron, thank you very much for super chat. So Patrick says about that, what's happening with the Ugarte deal. So look, anyway, summary there. Sancho, I would say at the moment, I'm 50-50 on Sancho going. At the start of the week, I was probably 60-40 that he'll stay. So it could be moving in the right direction. Just on Outgoings, by the way, it is a news show. So let me just give you a quick summary. I know we did this on Sunday night. On Outgoings, Lindelof not going anywhere. Maguire not going anywhere. Eriksen probably not going anywhere because there's no interest. Casemiro not going anywhere. So where we are on Outgoings is significant outgoings. Sancho 50-50. Maguire, McTominay is the other one. He's drifting closer to United in a new contract. Madness. Absolute madness. We've had 2 opportunities to sell this bench player and we're now looking at keeping him and giving him a new contract. It's mad. Absolutely mad. But McTominay's move out of Man United has gone very, very quiet at the moment. It's still possible, but it's gone very, very, very quiet. Now, the only other thing I would add into that is then Sancho, McTominay are probably the only 2 that might go and they could both end up staying. Casemiro, there was a theory yesterday afternoon when I was having a chat with a journalist and we were talking about just, you know, WhatsApping back and forward. And I basically threw out that, well, is there any possibility that we sign Ugarte and sell Casemiro? And what I got back was, there's probably no possibility of it, but what could happen in the final week is things could go crazy from Saudi and Man United could sign Ugarte, Casemiro could get the hump, Saudi could come in, give United what they want, Casemiro goes and they bring Rabiot or Amrabat in and it's Ugarte and Amrabat for Casemiro. But highly unlikely considering he started against Fulham, he'll start tomorrow and he'll probably start against Liverpool. So very far-fetched, but we don't know what's going to happen in this final week, and we've never had a summer under Ineos before. So, look, I think Sancho and McTominay are probably the 2. But forget Lindelof, forget Maguire. They're not going to be going anywhere. Patrick Lynch says, we may not get Andre, but it is encouraging that we're looking at those profile of players. Age and fee-wise, these type of players are needed. Yes, and I think we've brought a lot of players under the age of 25, haven't we? In fact, Mazraoui's the only one who's 25 or over. Over 25. Do you think we can win a few trophies this season, says Taz? Yes, I think we're going to win the Premier League, the World Cup, the Grand National. Excuse me. That's what happens when you lie, you sneeze. Look, I don't know. I don't know, Taz. I genuinely... Look, we've got our Premier League preview show live from the Goldbridge Arms at midday on That's Football. We'll be talking a bit about Man United's Brighton game on there because I think there's some interesting games this weekend. Obviously, Man City and Liverpool have got a weekend off, or what I call is home bankers. Man City, Ipswich and Liverpool home to Brentford. We've got a very difficult game against Brighton. And if we want to get top 4, we've got to go and win these types of games. I mean, I'm sorry to say that points at Brighton aren't really going to get you top 4, if I'm being honest. I don't think they are. I think you've got to go and win that type of game. Can we win trophies? We don't know. You know what, Taz? What's our best 11? I think Man United's best 11 is Onana, Dalot, De Ligt, Martinez, Luke Shaw, Ugarte, Mainu, Bruno, Garnacho, Ahmad, and Rasmus. That's my personal 11. Some of you will have Xerxes, Rashford, Garnacho on the right. You might have Casemiro in. You might have Mazraoui instead of Dalot. We don't know what our best 11 is, and a lot of those players aren't fit or even at the club yet. So very, very difficult to say what we're going to do because you're always going to pick up injuries and you're always going to get suspensions. But what is our best 11 on paper? Because at the moment, we don't actually know. Eric Ten Hag must be okaying McTominay's contract. You can't absolve him, says United One. Look, managers, as I've said before, are greedy. If you say to a manager, do you want to sell Scott McTominay? Eric Ten Hag will be thinking, well, I'm not going to start him, but I wouldn't mind him on the bench to throw on for 10 minutes every now and again. It's just greed. I get why Ten Hag wants to keep him. What the question is, if I'm Ineos, you want Ugarte to start, but you want McTominay for your bench. Well, you can have one or the other. Make your bloody mind up. But look, it's not. Ten Hag's not the first manager in history not to want to sell players and wants to hoard them up, so he's got loads and loads of options. And he's probably a manager that wants more options than anybody after what happened to him last year in relation to injury crisis. I mean, I think Ten Hag does want to keep McTominay, but does he want to start him? Absolutely not. He doesn't want him in his starting team. He just wants him as an option off the bench, which I don't know how that helps someone like Mason Mount, who probably will be the player for that position. Why do you hate McTominay so much? I don't hate anybody, Mike. So I despise the word hate because I don't actually hate anybody in my life. So I find the word hate, in fact, I might block it from the channel actually, because it's just a word I massively dislike. I think it's so childish and a really, really bad way of trying to make a point in competitive sport. Because you lace the point with an ultra negative about my opinion, and then I can't really give you an opinion on it because you've completely and utterly loaded it up with a really unfair word which I don't actually have. So I'm not answering your question, Mike, because I can't answer a question that I don't recognise. Why do I hate McTominay? If you'd have asked a question like, what is it about McTominay that you don't think is good enough for a Man United side that's trying to get in the top four, I'd have answered it. But hate, I don't even recognise the word. Lee Berman gifted a membership. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Ugarte is this year's De Jong. Make the shirts, Marks, as Baron. I threw that De Jong prototype into the crowd of our live show last year. I can't believe we had T-shirts printed on De Jong, and he never came, which I just found incredible. Just let me throw this centre back situation right. This one might get you going. Oh, thank God I've got a tissue in my back pocket. That sneeze is sort of set off. I don't know why my allergies are still kicking in late August. I think I'm allergic to the dog. One of us has got to go. I'll tell you what, it'll be me packing my bags with my family. Anyway, let's talk centre-backs. Manchester United have been linked to, with Spurs this morning, Christensen of Barcelona. And I'm struggling to understand any logic to this, because this is exactly what we have to remember in the final week. We've been really lucky this summer transfer window that we haven't been linked to shit as much. Remember the 5 principles of a transfer window that we haven't even had to use this much? I mean, I was bigging it up in April and May. Remember the 5 principles, the United Stand 5 principles of a transfer. 1, it's total bullshit. 2, it's true. 3, it's the agent using United to generate interest. 4, it's the club selling the player using United to generate interest. Or 5, it's the player using United to try and get a contract where they already are. We've not really had to use that. But I tell you what, we can bloody use it now. Andre, I think we're being used to get Wolves to up their price. Fofana, we were definitely being used to get Milan to up their price. And this Christensen story, we have to be being used for something, because why the bloody hell would we want a bang average, right-footed, 28-year-old centre-back from Barcelona? It's just weird, and thankfully something we've not been used to that used to happen 10 times a week. And it's not happened much this summer transfer window. This is just a load of bollocks using Manchester United for whatever reason around Christensen. And I can't even be bothered to figure out whether he wants a new contract, whether Barca are using us, probably. But we are not in for Christensen, and we don't need Christensen. And if he was left-footed, there might be some logic, but he's right-footed. So absolutely waste of time. But what I did see around centre-backs, which caught my eye this morning, and granted, it was in the sun, so don't worry, it's not like, you know, written in the stars that it's going to happen. But if it had been from a better source, I would have been laughing. So basically what they were saying was, and God knows Liverpool have not got... I mean, you may as well write it on your arse. I mean, Liverpool fans are not going to take any notice of this story at all because it's in the sun and they hate the sun. But what it was saying is that Liverpool, who've not spent anything this summer transfer window, there's a lot of rumour around Liverpool that in the final week of this window, they're just going to slap some money on the table for a player that people think a club won't sell. And they'll get it done because it's right at the end of the window and it's good money. And this story was basically saying that Liverpool are going to knock on the door at Goodison Park and offer up £63 million for Jared Branthwaite with $7 million in add-ons. And I was just laughing when I read it because I thought, well, if that happened, there would be absolutely none jealousy from me about that. I like Branthwaite and I wish we'd got hold of him as a left-footed centre-back. I think we needed that. I really, really do. But 63 million plus 7, forget about it. You know, forget it. Absolutely not. And I tell you what, I've sort of forgot about the Branthwaite deal now because we desperately wanted him. He was a high-profile player for Ineos, but I've got to applaud the fact that we just got out of that deal a long time ago, and it's not drifted into late July, early August, end of August. We've been out of that Branthwaite deal for weeks, and yes, there's always been talk it could go to the wire, and we might go in with a third bid in late August, and who knows, maybe we will. I don't think we will now, but maybe we could have done. But you look at what's happened with the centre-back situation and what Everton have demanded. It's only what Crystal Palace are doing with Guehi and Newcastle. I mean, that deal has been rejected, I believe, at around 70 million. And Crystal Palace is still saying no. It's incredible. Sometimes you can observe a transfer that doesn't involve United and go, it doesn't just happen to us. That's a bloody joke. I mean, I like Branthwaite and I like Guehi. But we've just bought De Ligt at 25 for 42 million. Like De Ligt for 42 million and he's 25. And Newcastle are paying nearly double for Guehi. It's incredible the tax you have to pay on a British player. It really is. And I'm very, 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 very glad that we're not locked in on that sort of thing because it is silly. Shane Costello's just gifted 5 memberships, by the way. What an absolute legend. I hope you're doing well, Shane. Happy Friday, everybody. It's a bank holiday weekend in the UK, by the way. So if you've got plans or anything like that, look forward to it. Hopefully the weather's going to improve, but whether it does or it doesn't, Man United Brighton tomorrow. Obviously the preview's on the channel. Check that out, but very, very excited about that. Daniel says, it's my birthday today. I just wanted to say thank you for all the cool content you've provided with over the years. You're an absolute legend. Daniel, happy birthday to you. Absolute legend you are. And that reminds me, I have got a shout out to give as well for Arlo, who is a big fan of the channel. And his dad, who is a mate of my mate, said that he watches the show regularly. And he'd love it if we gave Arlo a shout out. So big shout out to Arlo. Thank you very much for supporting the channel and watching it. And also big shout out to Daniel, whose birthday is it as well. So Arlo and Daniel, big shout out for you. James Cave says, morning Mark, great show. Assuming we get Ugarte, which part of the team do you think will be strongest this year? Attack, midfield or defence? I think this is a great question, James. Look, I think the revolution of the spine of the team is up and running. There's no two ways about it. I don't think we're quite ready at centre-back, but certainly we've strengthened massively in that area. Midfield, we've not strengthened at all, but I think we all know what's going to happen, and Ugarte will strengthen it. And then Xerxes is a strengthener as well in the midfield area, in the attack. So we are gradually moving forward. There's still a hell of a lot of work to do at Manchester United, but I think improving the spine is clearly what we've done this season. We do need a left back. We were interested in Elise, and yes, we've brought Mazraoui in, but predominantly it's the oldest trick in the book, build your spine. There's no point buying a world-class left back and a world-class right winger and then neglecting centre-back, midfield and attack. And I think that's what we've done there. Jeffrey says, Ugarte's combative style with Rabiot controlled ball playing would suit us. If Casemiro isn't leaving, both Ugarte and Amrabat might be overpriced, says Jeffrey. He just reminded me actually last night. Last night there's a lot going on, and a lot of people were talking about what Scholes said about Ugarte and how the ex-players have been very negative about De Ligt, which they have. I'll tell you what, I listened to what Paul Scholes had to say, or I got sent a clip this morning. And basically what he was saying is that Manchester United last season were conceding a lot of chances, and it was very end-to-end. And he would prefer Zubimendi because Zubimendi can just get control of the game. Whereas he's only seen Ugarte play a couple of times and doesn't think he's that sort of player. Well, look, at least Scholes is willing to, expose the fact that he hasn't watched Ugarte play much at all. And he's probably not seen Zubimendi play a lot. I can't imagine Paul Scholes is watching Real Sociedad home and away. I would imagine he's seen him play in the Euros in the last 20 minutes of a final, because I can't imagine anywhere else that Paul Scholes will have even seen Zubimendi play, because he's not like he's playing for Barcelona or Real Madrid anyway. But you know what? In fairness, I was thinking about it and I thought, right, okay, I think Ugarte is a very, very clever signing, but what is he actually saying? And what he's saying is he wants a midfielder to get hold of the ball. Alex says you haven't watched him either. What a joke. Alex, look, it's Friday. It's a really good community. It's a really positive community. And if you don't want to watch it, then I'm not even going to block you. Just go away and do something with your sad, negative life. Because I'm telling you now, Alex, saying I haven't watched Ugarte is incredible when I've watched Ugarte on watch-alongs with people in this chat. And factually, when people say I don't watch people play, I probably do more watch-alongs than anybody. And if you go through them all over the last 4 years, you can tick off where you've watched these players with me as well. So I don't know why I'm reacting to you, Alex, but sometimes I just find it really thick on your part and anybody else's part when they say, I bet you haven't seen him play, when we factually will have seen it together. And I'm also halfway through my points that may actually fit in with what you're talking about anyway. So when Paul Scholes is saying he doesn't really think Ugarte is the right player, Zubimendi would be, because he wants a player to get hold of the ball, because last season it was very end-to-end. He's not wrong in the sense that it was end-to-end last season. And he's not wrong in the sense of getting a player who can hold on to the ball would make a big difference. But where he is wrong, in my opinion, Alex, is that who is the best player in world football for getting control of a game? And I would say it's Rodri. If you put Rodri in Man United's team last year, it wouldn't stop us being end-to-end and it wouldn't make us control the ball. Because we weren't end-to-end conceding loads of chances last season because we didn't have Rodri. We were end-to-end last season because our defensive line was very deep and our attacking line was pressing. Because Ten Hag wants to press high up the pitch, but his defence is too slow, so that when the press doesn't work, there is this massive void in the midfield. And even if Rodri was there, he'd still get bypassed. And then even if the defence give Rodri the ball, he can't control the game when the team is so far apart. So I know what Scholes is saying. He's saying he wants us to stop being a team that, loses the ball, wins the ball. It's end-to-end. They have a chance, we have a chance. He wants more control. But Zubimendi wouldn't give us more control, even though he's a player that plays well in a possession system, because you've got to get the whole team playing like that first. And last season was a very unique situation because we never had a back four and the gap between the defence and the midfield was huge. So you couldn't control the ball because everybody's too far apart, and they couldn't be close together because you've either got to park the bus to bring the attack back, or you could have put a slow defence on the halfway line and get exploited. This season, we will have more control of the ball because we will compact, because we've got a defence that can play higher up. And therefore, we will have more control of the ball anyway, which is what we saw against Fulham. We actually didn't concede many chances. We had more chances and we had more control of the ball. So naturally, I agree with what Scholes is saying about Zubimendi's a better possession player than Ugarte. But Zubimendi's not the solution to the problem last year. It's actually the defensive line that needs to move up, which will allow us to be more compact and allow us to be better in possession. Amrabat or Rabiot? It's the shits or the flu. How about a left back, please? Nice chair, says Toby. And do you know about the CDM the club signed? Will he be part of the first team, says Dex? Well, again, a lot of people talking about Kone this morning. We spoke about him in depth last night. He will be signing for Man United next season. Next week. Fabrizio has confirmed it. He's got no CV at all in European football because he's actually in Mali. That's where he's been playing, and he played for the under-17s. There are limited clips of him playing for Mali under-17s, and to me, he looks a little bit like an Ugarte style of midfielder, where it's all action. You know, he's quite good at breaking up the play, carrying the ball, passing, getting rid of it, tackling. But you know, it's ridiculous to try and predict what type of player he's going to be. Just on that though, Obi Martin. Fabrizio giving an update on Obi Martin, who we're bringing in from Arsenal. He's basically saying it will be official very soon. So with Obi Martin, who we brought in from Arsenal, this 16-year-old striker, it had gone a little bit quiet around him for a few weeks, but this is because we've got to agree compensation with the Premier League and Arsenal. But Fabrizio is saying that this deal will be done very, very soon. It is going to get done. It's just about, you know, the finality and the official statements, etc. As your channel grows, so will the weirdos, Mark, says Parker. I know. I shouldn't react. Would Branthwaite even want to go to Liverpool, says Glenn C. I mean, I don't know. Stranger things have happened. Mark, do you think the club will be as swift as they have been in the summer window in the winter, says Dex? I think we've got to use the winter transfer window. I think you make a great point. I think we have got to use it. Tom's just put a chicken in the oven. Have a great day. I hope it was dead, Tom. Makes Delit and Yoro look like bargains, says Patrick Lynch, when Guehi is going for that amount of money. Exactly. Completely agree on that. Where will United finish this season, in your opinion, says Ian? Well, I don't know whether Robert McCormack's lurking in the background, but I do actually agree with him that I'm going to put pressure on Ten Hag and Man United this season. Because we fought so hard to keep him. It's not a free run. And I think what's got to happen is we've got to be accountable. And unless we get a massive injury crisis again, I think we've got to get fourth place. I think the realistic competitor for United is Chelsea when you look at their squad, and they're struggling. Newcastle haven't got the squad we've got. Spurs haven't got the squad we've got. And Villa are in Europe. So for me, Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, fine. If we can compete with one of those, brilliant. But fourth place has got to be ours this year. Look, there's always mitigating circumstances. There's always injuries, etc. But looking at it now, if Ugarte comes in, which I think he will, fourth place for me is absolutely here. Robert's here. Lurker alert. Yeah, he is. Well, he'll be happy about that. Hope you're doing well, Robert. Ian says, done that one. Tahil says, morning, Mark. Please wish my big sister, Daisha, a very happy birthday. We're huge United fans from South Africa. United. Happy birthday. And thank you very much. And happy birthday to Daisha. Okay, we have had a poll running here for what it's worth. Rabiot or Amrabat, or who I've spelt Amrabat. 55% of you would prefer Amrabat to Rabiot, which I think is rather interesting. Not sure for me which one I would prefer out of those two. I think I do get it. I think Rabiot might come with a little bit more baggage, whereas Amrabat, as we know, will just come in and get his head down and work hard and be very good in the dressing room. Having said that, I think Rabiot is better than Amrabat, so it's that balance, isn't it? I think Amrabat's more likely if we're going to get that second midfielder. But I don't think we will unless we can move on to midfielders, which at the moment is looking very unlikely. Shane says, I'm liking going for unknown talent. May it continue? Well, it will always continue, mate. It's something that we, as a football club, always try to do. I just think we need to do it a little bit better. But there's the lad from Crystal Palace that it's gone very quiet on as well. And I don't know whether we're going to get an update on that at some point. But that would be 3 players brought in if we do that. Certainly. Just having a quick look around stories. Pelistri obviously went, didn't he? I didn't mention it yesterday. Apologies, I should have mentioned this yesterday. Remind me of the club. Was it Legia Warsaw? Odieli went to Legia Warsaw. Look, I'm a bit conflicted on this. I mean, it's not the first time we've done it. We did it with James Garner, and he had a much better CV. I thought he did well on pre-season, actually, and I thought he looked like quite a technical player who could get around the pitch. But bottom line is he had 1 year left on his deal. So what are you going to do? I think that you've got to make a decision there. Do you give him a new contract? Do you let him go? Do you let him run his contract down? I would imagine Man United have inserted buyback clauses, pay-on clauses, etc. And look, he certainly wasn't smashing the door down to get into the first team this year either. So I think he's one of those players there where you sort of look at it and go, a little bit like Kamwala, really. Wish him all the best, and maybe there's a pathway back. But if there isn't, I hope they do really, really well in the game. But I thought he did well in pre-season. But with a year left on his contract, I think it's a tough one. And I think United probably have made the right decision, because the only other option really was to give him a new contract, who God knows what he wanted, I don't know, and then loan him out to a championship club, and then he comes back next year. I think it's the right... Sometimes I think it's the right thing to do to let these players go and just make sure that you secure some sort of buyback clause or something like that, because Man City do this really well. Man City do it very, very well. They sell players for good money, and then they have them tied up on buyback clauses and sell-on clauses, etc., etc. So, yeah, I think that's a good one. Rocky says 10 million was okay. I don't think we got 10 million, did we? I don't know what he went for, but I don't think it was 10 million. Hi Mark, you said when Ineos bought us, they would spend big to win us over in the first season. So what do you think future windows will look like? Says Ethan. I mean, I've got no idea, mate. I can't tell you, because I think until we've completed this one and learn and assessed and see what happens in January, I think it's too early to say. We're still a club in debt, aren't we? We've still got debt. And we've still got the Glazers here. So it's very difficult. And also, what if this summer is as good as it gets, and then next summer it's about tightening the belt again? But I personally think there's reason to be positive, because the cost cutting will stop borrowing. And I think what the Glazers used to do is you'd get a Mourinho in, or an Ollie, or a Ten Hag, and in their first summer, you'd back them. And then in the second and third summer, you'd sack them by not backing them properly, because you'd go, well, we spent all this one on the first summer, we're not doing it again because we haven't got the money. Whereas the Ineos approach, you can see things going on that are going to save us money. Like the wages we're giving to our new signings are not extortionate so far. We're also removing big wages, and that will continue next summer. So as long as the wage bill comes down, I think in future summer transfer windows, we'll be able to have similar ones to this one. I don't think we're ever going to see the Paul Pogba's for 89 million or the Jadon Sancho's for 75 million again, and thank God for that. But I can see us having a summer next year where you pick up a Xerxes because he's got a release clause, or you pick up a De Ligt because it's 40 million, and maybe you pick up a younger player like Yoro for 50 million. And to be honest, for 2 or 3 years, I'd put up with that. Lower the wage bill and bring in players like this summer. It is more project-led. Whereas I think the Glazer approach was to try and solve it in one summer, and then the money's run out. So hopefully it's a sign of things to come. Plus, did Rabiot do anything for France in the Euros? I'll say I thought he played okay in a couple of games. I thought France in general were quite crap. I'm liking going for a no talent making this. Yeah, thank you very much, Shane. Okay, well, look, we've got a fantastic show for you on the United Stand at 4 o'clock, by the way. Ricky's coming into the studio. Beth and Ricky talking about lots of things. Maybe Ricky can tell us why McTominay is Xavi and Iniesta and talk about his scrutiny of Bruno's game. But lots to talk about. Obviously, if anything breaks, Ugarte, we will go live, but I don't know whether anyone's expecting that. Talking about being live, I'm live in the Goldbridge Arms with Will at 12 o'clock with our Premier League preview show on That's Football. Make sure you tune in for that. And Seb's going to be there because it's the school holidays and he's got his new kit on. So we might get him to just run through singing United just to piss everybody off on there who doesn't support United. Hashim says, we say, would McTominay play for City, Liverpool, but equally, do any of those teams have a defensive monster like Ugarte? Just putting it out there. But you don't know what Ugarte is, mate, Hashim. So basically what you're saying is Liverpool... Oh, my God. Let me try and pick my pips out of this. You can leave if you want to, but I'm not going to leave on this. So Hashim is basically likening McTominay to Ugarte because what he's saying is that Liverpool and Man City don't have a McTominay and they don't have an Ugarte. So he's basically saying that they're very similar. You don't know what Ugarte is all about, Hashim, because... defensive monster doesn't mean he just runs around tackling. There are other aspects to his game. I would reserve judgment on Ugarte till you've seen him playing for Man United, which is what we all need to do. But I wouldn't be comparing him to Scott McTominay because I think Ugarte will prove that he can play in a Liverpool team, whereas McTominay will never prove he can play in a Liverpool team. And actually, Alexi McAllister isn't a million miles away from that South American gritty defensive monster who can pass sort of player anyway. Right, we'll leave it there. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you... Tuleb says, how come we don't have standout centre-backs in the academy with high potentials to break into the senior team? Because, you know what we do with our youth team is incredible. In the last 25 years, since the class of 92, you wouldn't even get 5 players on your hand that have come through to the first team and been really good first team quality. You can't. There's no guarantee. You can't just go, I want a new Vidic from the youth team. It takes a lot of hard work to do it. We're doing very well at the moment. I mean, people are just assuming Collier's going to come through and be an England starter. I mean, if that happens again, it's incredible. You know, on average, someone like Mainu coming through is probably every 10 years if you're lucky, let alone every year. Take care, everyone. Smash a like and subscribe. I'll speak to you on the next one.